Hello, everybody. I hope this turns out okay. I have lost my tripod. How do you lose a tripod? It's kind of weird. I had it the other day when I was doing my video about the storm, and I have searched the house upside down, and I cannot find it. So I've kind of got to do this video from a different angle. Um, Casey Anthony's murder trial is still going on, as you know. I watch it every day as much as I can. When I come home from work, I'll try to watch it, and then they do the recap. But when the verdict comes in, I hope it's on a day that I'm off. And I've already told Joe, if it's not on a day when I'm off, as soon as the verdict comes in, rather than me coming home and finding out about it secondhand, because it's going to be all over the news, for him to call me at work, because I really, really want to know. And an interesting thing that they had on there the other day, that the judge was talking about. You know how the judge will talk for a little while. He was talking about circumstantial evidence in cases where you can be found guilty on just circumstantial evidence alone. And he referred to a case number and said it was the Epperly case in the state of Virginia. I don't know if any of you remember this. Most of you don't, but the Epperly case back in 1980, 80 something, might have been 1980, where Steve Epperly murdered Gina Renee Hall, and her body to this day has never been found. But he was convicted of murder and got life imprisonment for her murder, even without a body. So, but what made that so interesting that he would bring that up is because I personally knew Steve Epperly. I lived in the town where he lived at the time when I think I was like 17, 18, 17. And I lived in the town where he lived at, and I had just gotten a job at this place called Jefferson Mills. And I remember I would get off at 11 o'clock at night, and my Aunt Ernestine would come pick me up. Her and my mom would come and pick me up from work, and we would go to this house where it was Steve Epperly's parents' house, but he lived there too. And because my Aunt Ernestine and his dad, were CB buddies, and they were friends to boot. So we would all go there, and we would hang out for a little while after I got off work. And we would have a few beers and whatever. And or they would have a few beers. Sometimes I would have a beer, sometimes I wouldn't. I was only 17, but you know how that goes. Anyway, the majority of the time, me and Steve would go outside and down a little embankment into the dark, because there was woods around, and sit in his car. And we would sit there and just talk and so anyway, just out of the blue one day, Steve had called me one morning while Mom and my aunt was at work. And he called me and said that he was moving to Blacksburg or to Radford, and did I want to go with him and get some boxes and help him move. He wanted me to go with him and get some boxes and help him move. And given the fact that I had just started my job, and I knew Mom would be really mad if I called in, I said, no, I just started my job, and I better go to work. And so he never called me again. Never talked to him anymore after that. But as it turns out, that was the same year that he was convicted. He was tried for rape twice in the year 76. The first time he was acquitted. And no, the first time they threw it out, I think, and the second time he was acquitted. So he got away with it twice. And he probably raped other women too. His dad was a cop, and that's probably how he got out of that. Now, since he's been convicted in this murder of Gina Hall, there's a site online, and I don't remember what it's called. I wished I did, because I was just looking at it, where everybody leaves comments about, the Steve Epperly case. And most people that commented on there, of course, knew Steve, and they talk about his temper and his dark side. There was one person who commented on there that said that he was, I think, used to be a prison guard where Steve Epperly is at, and he said that not a lot of people hang out with Steve. They don't hang around him. Said he doesn't stand out as a weirdo or anything. It's just that once you're around him, you see his temper from time to time, and it's scary. And people just don't like to be around it. Now that's something when people in prison don't like to be around you. Then you get a hell of a temper. I never saw Steve's temper though. I guess I was very, very lucky. But the one thing that stood out in that thing was where this one woman made a comment and said that she met Steve, and shortly after she met him, he asked her out to his place, and said that they ordered pizza and they ate, and that he was pushing her for sex. And she said she felt intimidated and she was a little scared of him at that point, so she gave in and had sex with him. And after she did, she said his friend came over and said he intimidated her and, told her to have sex with his friend. And she said she became very scared because I guess certain things he was doing or saying. So she said she went ahead and had sex with his friend. And she said she was embarrassed and ashamed and everything of what she was doing, but she just wanted to make it out of there. And she said that before she left, that Steve had told her that he was going the next day, he wanted to go and get some boxes. And would she go with him to get some boxes and help him move? And she told him she would, but she said after she left, she never went back. And she never heard from him again. And she was not going to go help him get boxes or get boxes for him. And that's sort of the same story he had asked me. So had I gone with him to get boxes to help him move, I might have been one of his victims. So that's kind of weird. That's kind of scary. And a lot of people on that site talk about Steve's temper and how he was always out of control. They say, now this is the way the story goes as far as Gina Hall goes. For those of you who don't know the story, he met Gina Hall at a nightclub in Radford or Blacksburg. I think it's Radford. She was from Radford. And they left together and they went to a cabin on Clater Lake. And supposedly, as he tells it, they went to the cabin on Clater Lake, and I think they ate, and then they had her car. Supposedly she drove him home, and then she left and he never saw her again. That was his version. But according to the version that the police say, was she was reported missing by her sister. She did call her sister and say that she was going to stay away for the night. She'd see her the next morning. She was reported missing the next day, and they went to the cabin and they found signs of where somebody had tried to clean up blood. They said and come find out it was massive amounts of blood that had been tried to clean up. They said the cabin was torn up a little bit, I guess because of a struggle. They found her car near a railroad trestle with blood in the trunk. And somewhere along the line, they found her clothes tied up in a bundle, and they were bloody. So she didn't have her clothes. There was blood in the trunk of her car. And so they took the tracking dogs from the cabin to the car, from the car to Steve's house. And that's how he was arrested. They did a lie detector test. Of course, lie detector tests are not admissible in court, but he failed the lie detector test twice. And they told him that if he would tell them where Gina's body was, that he would be out in 20 years. And he wouldn't do it. He would not tell them. And to this day, he hasn't told them. So he still claims he's innocent, though. But this is what I wonder, though, because if he raped two women in 76, and 76 was the same year I knew him, and he got away with those two rapes, he killed Gina in 1980. There's a 4-year span there. I wonder what's happened in those 4 years. Some people write on this thing too, like I was just telling you about, where people write on, excuse me, how they have known people that have been coming forward since then. You know, now that he's locked up, women that's come forward, that he's raped them also. So he's a serial raper then. He's a serial raper, and it makes you wonder, has he killed before and hid their body somewhere? Like Joe had the theory that maybe he has raped other women and maybe killed them too, and that's why he won't tell where Gina's body is, because if he tells where her body is, they're going to find more bodies. And you never know. Apparently he put her somewhere where nobody's ever going to find her. And so, you know, they drug the lake at Claytor Lake. She wasn't in the water. So, it's all right. And he was I think he was a professor at Radford University. He was a college professor. So, and he kind of reminds me in a way, well, he doesn't really remind me of Joran van der Sloot, but this scenario, so to speak, kind of reminds you of Joran van der Sloot, because he killed this girl and her body has never been found. So he knows where her body is, but he's not saying. Joran van der Sloot, everybody knows he killed Natalie Holloway. Her body's never been found, and he ain't saying. And Steve's daddy was a cop. Joran van der Sloot's daddy was a judge. So, that's little similarity traits right there. So, yes, I knew Steve Epperly. Had I gone with him and got those boxes, like I said, I might have been one of his rape victims, or he might have killed me, or I might have killed him, because I was feisty back then. I don't take no shit off of nobody back then. I don't now, but I'm a lot more calm and focused than I was back then. Back then, yeah, I might have took him by surprise if he'd tried to attack me. But, or I'd have probably ended up dead if I'd fought back, but you know how that goes. But to this day, Steve is still in prison. And, but yeah, I thought I'd bring that up since the judge was talking about that on the Casey Anthony trial. So what do you think? Do you think that there's a possibility Casey Anthony might walk? I think there's a big possibility. And this is, okay, Steve Epperly, yeah, he was convicted without a body on circumstantial evidence. So they might convict Kaylee on circumstantial evidence. I think that's what the judge was intertwining there with the Epperly case. They could do that, but look at the O.J. Simpson case, like I've said before, where everybody knew O.J. was guilty, but he walked. So it's possible Casey could walk. And everybody says she won't walk. Everybody knows she's guilty, but everybody knew O.J. was guilty too. But that made no difference. So, but people are so quick to say, well, Casey didn't want the baby in the first place. Her mom, Cindy, made her keep that baby. Like blaming the mama. Don't do that. Do not blame Cindy Anthony for that. It's just ridiculous. So, yeah, but and at the same time, but what they don't bring up is they said, well, Cindy Anthony made her have that baby, and Casey wanted to give the baby up for adoption, but Cindy said no. Well, but they don't bring up the fact that Cindy Anthony told Casey Anthony, let me and your dad adopt Kaylee. Give us Kaylee. We'll adopt her. And Casey said no. So Cindy Anthony wanted to adopt herself. Casey said no. So people ought to bring that point up too. Tell both sides of the coin now. Don't just show one. Anyway, I think that's all I've got to talk about for now. And I'm going to go and try to find my tripod, because this is just disturbing to me. I don't know what I could have possibly done with it. And anyway, until next time, bye-bye.